5. I think you guys stop aging though, because I'm still getting older, but when I look around the room, you guys all look the same. Hell, some of you guys are in the same seats as you were 10 years ago. When getting prepared for this, I did a little bit of research, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame actually has this advertised as top quality speakers from the sports world each week. But you know how you can tell it's Monday before Thanksgiving? You've got a washed up sports writer introducing a retired high school track and field coach. Way to go, RJ. In all seriousness, it's my pleasure to introduce to you my brother-in-law and today's speaker, Scott Ferrell. Let me tell you a little bit about Scott. He was a pretty big deal at Glen Oak as the track coach and cross-country coach there. And I also have to say a few nice things about him because Thanksgiving's at his house this year. He taught for 34 years at Glen Oak and was the head track and field coach for 32 of those years and was the head cross-country coach for 31 of those years. And during that time, out of those 32 years, his teams won 28 Federal League titles, 24 district championships, 8 regional championships, a state runner-up finish, and 15 top finishes at the state meet. Glen Oak produced 393 state qualifiers and 199 All-Ohioans. I believe one of whom is calling plays for Ohio State now. His athletes set 35 of 40 Glen Oak team records. The one elusive one being, you guys all still remember this, Dan Deerdorf's shot put record, set in 1967, still stands at Glen Oak. I'm lucky enough to be married to his sister Colleen. She's sitting over here. Go ahead, wave at everybody. She's been convincing. I told Scott, I said, you know, if I die next week, she will become a member of this luncheon club because she loves old men. Any parent's dream, though, is to make sure their children receive a world a little bit better than the one that they had, and then to also leave the world a little bit better than the one that they received. The late Bill Ferrell was a school superintendent, and his wife, Tina Ferrell, was a school teacher. They can be very proud. Colleen makes a difference every day at Goodwill of Greater Cleveland and East Central Ohio as the director of marketing, and she works with Pat over there. Pat, you didn't call off sick to be here, did you? Okay, all right. And as you guys will hear, Scott obviously has changed thousands of lives at Glen Oak High School. It is my pleasure to bring to the podium now Scott Ferrell.
Man, that was nice. Oh, brother. Oh, well, thank you very much, Todd. That was special. And Todd is my brother-in-law, so please take that with a grain of salt as we go through this thing. That's not how I met him, though. I met him just the same way that you guys did, probably through his sports writing with the Canton Repository. And for me, it was especially that Sunday special article that he did weekly. And one time, he wrote this article, had a little blurb on there about Ted Ginn Jr., and I don't remember if it was late in his college career or early in the NFL, but he wasn't the superstar that we all thought he was going to be at that moment. And so Todd writes this little blurb and says, "Track stars don't make great football players." And I was like, what? I'm like, I gotta let this guy know. Track is, I'm passionate about the sport. I love the sport. I've seen the impact that track and field makes on all athletes, and especially on the football field. And so I start this email, and I'm like, I'm going to let him know, track stars don't make great football players. Yeah, track makes football players great. And so I'm going to go through this list. I'm going to find all the Hall of Famers that have track and field in their background. And so there was no AI at the time, so I had to take some time, and I apologize if there's any plain local administrators in here, because I didn't teach science one single bit this day. So I got the Hall of Fame list over here. You had to Google each person and see what their background was. And so I come up with this list. I'm like, Bob Hayes, aforementioned. And I'm like, no. Bullet Bob Hayes. Then you got Willie Galt, Red Grange, Rod Woodson, Glen Oak legend Dan Deerdorf, Jim Thorpe, arguably the world's greatest athlete, and if not him, Bo Jackson. And so I send this list to Todd expecting to hear this concession of the importance of track and field and, respect for the sport. And what did I get back from him? Crickets. Not a word. So for years, same as you read some articles, you're like, this guy knows what he's talking about. And other times you're like, this guy's an idiot. And so I make snide remarks for years. And then one day, I get a phone call from my sister, and she's like, hey, I got tickets to an Indians game. Would you and Missy like to go? And I'm like, absolutely. And so she's like, well, I'm going to have a friend with me. I'm like, cool. She's like, do you want to know who it is? I'm sure. She's like, Tom Porter. You know what she got back from me? Crickets. So we go to that game that day, and she, of course, brings up the email. She makes things so awkward sometimes, right? But that day forward, we have a relationship built on mutual respect and love over the years, and thank you very much for everything. If you want the full version of that story, I'm sure my sister will be glad to give that to you. She'll be open for questions at the end as well. But as Todd said, I am a track and field coach. However, I don't run anymore. I didn't know if you could tell. I do try to still stretch on a regular basis. I would hate to pull a hamstring and have to explain how I did that, getting up too fast from my chair. So, you were supposed to laugh at that. Before I get too deep into this, I do want to say a couple of thank yous. First to my wife, Missy. She couldn't be here today. It's picture day at Kindercare, the daycare center, and that's a priority. But she was a foundation for me through the years and a support system that I wouldn't have been able to function without. And for those of you that have coached in the room, you know how important that support system is from your spouse. And the wife of a coach is a special role. They have no impact on the outcome of anything. They just have to live with the results and listen to you. And that support system doesn't go unnoticed. And it wouldn't have been as fun without her by my side through the years. And I want to say thank you to you, the Luncheon Club. It's an honor and a humbling experience to stand up here and get to share some of my story with you. Man, my dad would be so impressed that a track and field and cross-country coach gets to speak to this prestigious group. And regardless of his presence today, I absolutely share this moment with him. You heard a little bit about me in the introduction. I was at Glen Oak for 34 years. I never had a desire to go anywhere else. I got a couple phone calls through the years, but as soon as I got there, I recognized that it was a place that can win a few state championships or win a state championship. And there are a few those there at Glen Oak that prove that point. The team state championship was elusive to me, but we got really close in 2001. In 2001, we were runner-up. We knew going into the meet it was going to be between us and St. Ignatius. St. Ignatius at the time had Tony Gonzalez, went on to be a great NFL player as well. And we were in the exact same number of events. We both had 9. And we had a few more variables than they did. So we were in 2 hurdle events, 3 relay events. We had a long jumper that was going, and we just knew that there's just more things to make an impact in the meet during that period of time. And our hurdle coach would always say, one of his famous lines during that period of time was, there's 2 types of hurdlers, those who have fallen and those who are going to fall. And so that held true that day. We had a kid, probably the greatest track and field athlete of my entire career, Derek Williams. Derek Williams is in the 110s, he's got 10 hurdles. And he was a stud. And so he takes off, gun goes off, he has a Derek Williams start, which is great. And he's over number 1, over number 2, starts to pull away. He's got the lead over number 4, number 5, number 6. And then where we sit across from the finish line, there's this white tent that kind of is in the way. It's where they stage the athletes for the podium. And so the athletes disappear behind this white tent. Derek goes into that in the lead. So we're looking on the other side, waiting for the field to come out. And the field comes out, and Derek doesn't. He's in last place when he comes out of that tent. And so when we talked to him later on after the race, he caught his lead leg over number 7, almost fell, regained his balance, got back up, and was able to pass the kid over number 9 and number 10, and ended up finishing 7th place in the race. So we go from a potential of 10 points to 2 points, and we ended up losing that meet by 4. Now, Derek recovers, and he goes on to he was on the state runner-up 4x1. Our 4x4 finished 3rd that day. He won the 300-meter hurdles and set a state record as well that lasted for, I think, 18 or 19 years. So he's responsible, Derek was responsible for 26 of our 34 points at that meet that day. It's an unbelievable day for anybody else in the world, right? And it is just unfortunate, but life isn't perfect. And that's one of the things that sports teach you, how to handle all of those emotions that you get, because you're gonna experience those things later in life. And sports teach us how to deal with those emotions early, so that when you experience them later on, you know how you have a little bit of foundation to move forward from. And it was nonetheless, for the results that day, what we accomplished were very special. And Glen Oak is a special place to coach. And I would like to thank all the athletic directors that I worked with. And here's a fun fact. I worked with every single athletic director in Glen Oak history, starting with Ralph Ciccarelli through current Scott Garcia, who I think is going to be here in the near future, speaking to you. And as a young coach, you need some guidance. You start out your career just trying to keep your head above water, trying to survive day to day, be in the moment where you are. And if you happen to get interviewed, you want to sound somewhat intelligent as you answer those questions, right? And so one day, Chris Bevan comes up to me, your old partner, and he's talking to me about Derek. And we had moved Derek to the hurdles as a junior. He goes and wins a state championship as a first-year hurdler, pretty impressive feat. And so he's talking to me about his abilities or whatever happened that day at a meet. And my answer to Chris was, I don't have words in my brain to describe that. What an idiot I sounded like. And my sister still reminds me of that. I'm sure that's part of the reason she's here today, is to get some quotable Scott Ferrell as we move forward through this. But you grow as a coach and you learn as a coach, and you have to get through those moments. And then as you start to get a little bit older, you start to reflect upon things, and you appreciate the experiences that you're having. You appreciate the achievements that your athletes are going through, and it gets a little more special. It's an appreciation, right? As we get older, we appreciate things just a little bit more. And then as you really get to the end of your career, people start to ask you questions about how many of this, how many of that, and it really makes you proud and humble all at the same time. And we had a ton of fun as a coaching staff at Glen Oak. And we got to see some athletes do some absolutely amazing things through our careers. I've experienced imposter syndrome my entire lifetime. So I speak in the we and the are a lot, because some of you know me well. I'm just me. I'm not special. I know that the role that I had, I recognize that the role that I had was special though, and I appreciate that. And I was proud to have that role through the years. And the Glen Oak program was certainly more than just me. As a group of coaches that I was lucky to have by my side through the years, we have a coaching staff of 12, and everybody coaches their own event. I'm not micromanaging you. Go coach your event if you have questions. I'm there for support. But there was 2 coaches that were with us for over 2 decades. Beth Winkler and Brian Crosby were imperative to our success through the years. And I worked with a lot of amazing coaches, but mostly it was the incredible athletes that we worked with that made us all look like we knew what we were doing. And I got to coach against some amazing coaches and athletes as well. I got to coach against legends like Rick Netzel, sitting here in the room, trying to beat this guy in a dual meet for years. That federally makes you better. Lee Sternberg, Tom Loy over here, also legends in Stark County as well in the track and field world. And other coaches that I got to experience coaching against, Chuck Kyle was at St. Ignatius that year that they beat us. Ted again, senior at Glenville through the years. And through my lifetime, I got to see and do a lot of amazing things because of the sport of track and field. And I learned so much from people through my career, both as an athlete and as a coach. When I was an athlete at Colonel Crawford High School, raise your hand if you've heard of Colonel Crawford High School. All right. Yeah, Tom, you would have seen them a lot. Yeah. I had amazing coaches there. Ted Bruner and Neil Jarvis were huge role models for me. They taught me the importance. Everybody, if I asked you your favorite teacher, everybody's coming with their favorite teacher right now. And it's not because of what they taught you. It's because of the way they made you feel, right? You remember your favorite teacher because of the way they treated you. And that's what I learned from those guys. To build that relationship with athletes is critical to the success of a program. It's critical to the success of an athlete because they have to know that you care about them before they can go on and trust you as a coach or trust the process of the program. And that's what I learned from those guys, is that relationship is so critical to everyone's success. Then I went to college at Malone, and I got to run for Jack Hazen, legend, and Scott Armstrong was the women's coach at the time. He then went on to hire me as the women's sprint coach for 2 years once I graduated from there. And I learned a ton of track and field technique coaching from those guys. And then my first high school coaching experience was at Copley High School as an assistant swim coach with a guy named Ed Burnshead. Ed is a genius. And what I learned from him is how to get athletes to believe in themselves, how to get athletes to believe that they can be champions, and then go out and make that happen. And he was just gifted at that. And I learned so much from those guys through my lifetime. You learn so much from watching great people do what they do, right? And that's exactly what they did through my career, and it was important to me. And then once I got to Glen Oak, and first started teaching, I had the pleasure of sharing an office with, listen to this list, Jim Nicodemo, Gary Isler, and Don Gregory, all legends of their own, right? And I just tried to be a sponge in that office, listening to those guys tell their stories and learning how they dealt with different situations as they went through them. And I just tried to emulate what they did through my career. And then, however, at Glen Oak, I knew that I had made it as a coach, that they had Joe Gilhousen use actual words with me in a hallway. So for those of you that know Joe, you got to earn those words. And it probably took 3 or 4 years. This is true. I would go down to the coach's office. I would walk in, Joe would be sitting there working on something for baseball, and I'd be like, Joe, have you seen Jim Nicodemo? And this is what the response would be. Thanks. And so imagine my excitement the day that Joe Gilhousen used an actual full sentence with me first, not without me asking a question. And Joe was a huge influence on how to be a champion as well. And we ended up spending a lot more time together through the years, but his influence was huge. So watching those guys do what they did just helped propel what we did through the years in the track and field program as well. And as a track and field coach in high school, you have to recruit. You have to recruit the hallways hard. Nobody wants to run. Our sport is every other sport's punishment. Think about that. What do coaches have to do when you mess up? Go run. Well, everybody looks at it as punishment, so nobody wants to come out for the sport because it's been used as a punishment forever. So I never use running as a punishment. I think push-ups or whatever it would be, but so we had to recruit the hallways hard, and multi-sport athletes were truly my bread and butter. Jory Lazinski sitting over here. multi-sport athlete, cross-country state champion, swimming All-Ohioan, track and field All-Ohioan, 3-sport athletes. They were the bread and butter for me through my entire career. I would go to other sports and watch them, not just to support, but also to look for the best athletes. Then I would find them in the hallway later on and give them my famous pitch line, our sport will make you better at that sport. And that would get them, hopefully, might take some more convincing, but it would hopefully get them to come out for the sport. And then once they make a relay or qualify for the state meet and hopefully standing on the podium, guess who's hooked? And so, remember the day when everybody was a 3-sport athlete and everybody was so more well-rounded and you weren't making choices as a 12-year-old and I'm gonna be a baseball player or whatever it might be. Get your people you know to go out for as many sports as possible. You have one small window in life to experience multiple sports. You can pick and choose later on what you need to do in college. Then you're gonna have to pick. But do as many things as you can as a kid. And we tried to get as many kids out for the program as we possibly could. We had over 200 athletes in our program, that's boys and girls, for over 20 years. Listen, slow kids have fast friends. Get everybody out. You're gonna find some talent in the room. And then some people just like to run. And they're the crazy ones. They'll go out and do it whether it was a sport or not. And so you just gotta find that balance between what you can get out and their friends and all that kind of stuff. And we had some outstanding athletes at Glen Oak that I got to work with. To name a few, Dustin Fox was a sprinter for us and long jumper for us. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Minnesota Vikings. Brian Hartline was a hurdler for us, high jumper for us, relay guy for us, and he was drafted in the 4th round in the NFL by the Miami Dolphins. Bryante Dunn, running back, sprinter for us, running back for Ohio State. Mikey Hartline, high jumper and hurdler for us, goes on to Kentucky to be the quarterback there. Candace Thomas, who was introduced here a few years ago, she was a 2-time state champion for us, went on to Adams State, and is probably the greatest sprinter that ever went through Adams State, which is a storied program for the track and field fans in the room. We had a thrower named Andrew White, who was a state champion in discus, 2-time state champion in discus. And we're at Euclid one year, and I've never seen I didn't know a discus could be thrown as far as this kid threw it. We're at Euclid one year, and so the ring's at one end of this field, and at the far end, out of the sector are these trees. And somebody came over to me and was like, you gotta come over to discus. Andrew threw the discus into the tree. I'm like, well, how did he do that? It wasn't a mistake. That's how far he threw it. He threw it, by the time we got there, and the discus is like 15 feet up in this tree. I got a great picture if you ever want to see it. But there's discuses up there in the tree, and they're like, how do we measure this? And so we're like, well, you just gotta kind of plumb bob it down and see where it would have been. And so it ends up being like 186 feet, but it's still 15 feet up in the air. If that thing would have kept going that day, it might have been the state record, but tree got away. Genevieve Yakel is a young lady that I coached, and she was a 3-time individual regional champion in cross country. Nora Salem was the fastest girl in Glen Oak history in cross country at this moment. Tommy Rice, state champion, and he just competed Saturday at the national championship cross country meet for Tulane. And as I mentioned earlier, Derek Williams, who had a phenomenal career. And some of the achievements that we had through the years, I guess this is a moment to brag. We had 12 state champions. We had three of our athletes ended up being Olympic trials qualifiers. Derek in the 400 meter hurdles, Candace in the 100, and Ryan Kenzel in the marathon. 2 athletes made Team USA. Derek made Team USA for 400 meter hurdles, and Jenna Yakel made Team USA actually as a triathlete. And so, you know the name. We had 11 high school All-Americans through the years and 1 national champion. Now, he happened to be a two-time national champion. And this is when there was one national championship. Today, there's 3 of them. There was one national championship back in the early 2000s. And Derek Williams is the only hurdler in U.S. track and field history to win both hurdles at the national championship meet. He won the 110s and then came back the next day and won the 400-meter hurdles. He was invited to the Olympic development camp out at the Olympic Training the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California. And so he had to have a coach go with him. So I sucked it up and went. And so we get out there, and if you ever get the opportunity to go to the training center, it is phenomenal. What an experience. So it's like this 10-day camp. And I'm going to tell you, the U.S. Olympic Center or Committee did this one right. Out of the 24 men that they took out there, 16 of those 24 ended up making Team USA at some point in their career. To name a few of those names at the time, Justin Gatlin was at the camp at the same time, world record holder. Tyson Gay was at the camp, world record holder. Derek Ruff was all-world guy in the hurdles. Rashawn Jackson won a gold medal. Karan Clement, also world-class hurdler as well. They knew what they were doing when they sent out that invite list. Derek went on to be the number 8 hurdler in the world that year that he made Team USA and ended up with a contract running for Reebok for a couple of years. Today, he lives out in California with his wife, 2-time gold medalist Angela Williams. Tell me I didn't try to get them to move to playing local soccer after they had kids. And then Brian Hartline was a 2-time state champion, also a hurdler and an All-American for us on the track. Then he went on to Ohio State. Then he went to the Miami Dolphins, then to the Browns, and now back at Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. Now here's a trivia question for you. How many yards, because he was a wide receiver, right? Wide receiver for all of those programs. How many yards did he have as a wide receiver in high school? Anybody know this one? 0. 0. He was quarterback, and then they were going to move him to wide receiver his senior year. So his brother Mikey could throw the ball to him. And in the very first game, we're playing Akron Garfield. We're on defense first. They shut down Garfield, 3 and out. Garfield punts. Brian's back to receive the punt. As he catches the punt, one of our kids blocks the Garfield kid into his leg. And you heard the pop, and it wasn't a pad hitting a pad. It was the pop of his tibia and I'm sorry if you're still eating here. It was the pop of his tibia and fibia breaking. And so when he laid on the turf and picked up his leg, not only did it bend at the knee, it also bent in the middle, and it's not supposed to do that. He, on Monday, had a rod put in his leg, and then, down the tibia, screwed in at the top, screwed in at the bottom, and that rod was in there for 5 months. In January, he got that rod taken out, and now he's got like a bird leg, right? Literally, because the bone is hollow, and where the rod was. And so now we're still months away from him even being able to put weight on it, let alone run. And so late March, he gets cleared, he's allowed to start running again. We work him back real slowly through a progression, and he goes on that year, his senior year, after having that tibia-fibia break, and becomes a 2-time state champion in both hurdles, the 110s and the 300-meter hurdles. One of the most phenomenal comeback stories I've ever heard in my lifetime, let alone got to experience along his side. And today, he still recognizes the importance of track and field in his life and how important track and field is to making a great football player. If you want to be recruited by Brian, you better have some track and field background in your career. I've heard guys going down there, and he asks them, "What event do you do?" And he's like, "I don't run track." And he's like, "You don't get it. I'll see you later." And so it's it's fun to hear those stories and know the impact that track and field had on some of these guys' lives. And I love the sport of track and field. It's such a pure sport. You don't have anybody that's going to pass you a ball. You don't have to rely on anybody else. It's you against you, and it's you against that field. As I like to tell the kids, stopwatches and tape measures don't lie. You know exactly what your performance is and exactly where you stand. And it's just such a beautiful sport because of that. And I appreciate you allowing me to spend some time and tell a couple of stories to you here about my career. I taught for 34 years. Hopefully you have some questions here. Does anybody have questions? Somebody's got to. Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, what do you think about winning the 5 divisions in like cross country and track?
We went to 4 divisions in cross country.
Okay.
I thought it was great for participation.
Okay.
5 divisions in track and field is going to be interesting to see. 5 divisions is a lot. It's gonna spread it a personal opinion. It's gonna spread it a little bit thin, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of quality happens in like Division 5. So it's great for participation, though. Fantastic for participation. It'll give many officials lots of opportunities in the postseason as well, which is also important, I think, for those experiences.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes, sir.
Why are the East Africans so dominant in long distance?
I'm going to steal this answer from Jack Hazen. Why are the East Africans so talented in the long distance? Because, as Hazen would say, they run 6 miles to school, they run 6 miles home from school, and they go home for lunch. It's what they do. And so you got that many miles as a 10-year-old, and you just keep on doing that forever, and you're living in altitude, and you have that going on as well. It just breeds it. It's just what they do. It's the culture, which is important. Yes.
Hi. My girls love running for you, and I'm grateful for the influence that you had on them. Looking back, what do you think cross country teaches young runners that stays with them long after they've left your team?
Discipline, internal discipline, right? Because we're not with them all the time. We weren't with your girls all the time, and they went out and put in the miles. If you want to be a great distance runner, you're putting in miles whether you're in the presence of a coach or not. And that discipline honestly comes from within. And that the sport of cross country, because cross country is a suffer fest, right? I mean, the race is 3.1 miles. Everybody's doing it. You're running a 5K once a week for 10 weeks if you make it to the state meet. And so it's a grind. And to have that internal discipline to go and put in those miles when nobody's watching, that's what makes a great runner. And I think that discipline that gets instilled in them from that just carries on to everything else that they're going to do through life. And it just makes for successful careers as well. Yes? Chuck?
Yeah, are you planning on doing anything with kids now that you're retired?
Well, that's a great question, Chuck. I was, am I doing anything with kids now? I volunteered with the cross-country team this fall. So when you retire from public service, you have the 60-day window that you have to go through before you can do anything. So I took that 60 days, and then I showed up every day to cross-country practice, and it was a great way to spend an afternoon. So still doing that. I'm a swimming official, and so I still spend some time being an official and officiating swimming meets. I added college to that resume as well, and so I've got the opportunity to work a couple of collegiate swim meets thanks to RJ. Thank you, RJ. And so yeah, I'll still be around in the spring. I'll still be the meet director for the Eagle Elite.
Okay,
So
we'll see you there.
okay, yeah, see you there. Yes, sir.
I'd like to change it up. I'm thankful for coaches, without a doubt. I think you guys are amazing. My youngest son, though, when he was 5 years old, I don't know what it was, but I put him on a track in Pennsylvania. He ran his whole life. That's all he loved was running and football. Thank God he got to play for Massillon, but my baby brother played for McKinley. And I got him to run his whole life because he wanted some of those real expensive shoes. So what I did, and it's funny you mentioned Bo Jackson. Them shoes was about $100, and I don't have $100. I said, let me tell you something. You go get a job like I had to when I was a young boy. He ran the paper route. Akron Beacon Journal, if you guys know, is the heaviest paper that we got in this. And in the wintertime, unless it was bad, his German Shepherd and his sled carried those papers. And I tell you, I miss him every day of my life. He had the best legs, and I'm thankful that good coaches gets our kids strong. It's that as they get older and them cigarettes and some of the other things get them. But I tell you what, a young kid that loves to run, it's one of the most beautiful things. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. And it absolutely is. Because you're doing, as a runner, you're doing the same thing as the group around you, right? And so you have a built-in support system with that. It's just automatically built in. And so you have the group of kids that are supporting you, you're supporting them doing the exact same thing. And that camaraderie that comes from that, it can't be found anywhere else, in my opinion. And so sports, and I think the sport of running enables that a whole lot. It's different than some other things. But you're right. It's just a special thing, and sports are so important to young people to keep them in the right direction.
Right on, right on.
Yes.
Since you've coached for 34 years and taught also, what was your most rewarding part, either the teaching or coaching, and what was the most demanding part?
Ooh. Most rewarding part is watching a kid be as great as what you knew they could become without them believing in themselves at first. And watching a kid turn into being able to believe in themselves that they are going to be able to be a champion is one of the most rewarding things that I've ever experienced. Most challenging, probably some parents that don't understand that. But we had a tremendous support system at Glen Oak, and don't think that there was a lot of negative there. There was a ton of support for our program and what we did, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Did you ever coach with Chad Palmer?
Senor Ramos, is that you? Chad Palmer is the guy that told me that there's two kinds of hurdlers. One that's gonna fall, or one that has fallen and one that's gonna fall. That's from Chad. And yeah, Chad was a fantastic hurdle coach for us. Coached both Brian and Derek during that period of time.
Thanks for your years at Glen Oak. You're looking good.
Well, thank you very much. So are you. You haven't changed a bit. In the back, I think right behind you.
Some 56 years ago, I was the cross-country coach and assistant track coach at Oakwood.
Okay.
Part of our problem at Oakwood, we didn't have a track.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first, go ahead.
So things have changed a lot in that. I only stayed 5 years and I got out of teaching altogether and got into sales. What changes have you seen during both sports, cross-country and track, during your career?
Number one, we got a track. So that was big. When I first started at Glen Oak, and Jory was on the team during this period of time, we didn't have a track in playing local schools. We had to go to Malone. So the high school was at 44th Street, right? So that's where eventually. So we would bus the sprinters and the jumpers and the hurdlers and throwers over to Malone. The distance crew ran from 44th Street to Malone every day. So I want to talk about running on a daily basis. They would run 2 miles to Malone and 2 miles back from Malone, plus do a workout while we were there. So the biggest change as far as that goes is facilities. Once they built that new facility at Glen Oak High School today, it was it was a game changer. They did build a 6-lane facility at 44th Street eventually, and we were there for a few years, but it was a 6-lane facility, and that had its own challenges because most tracks are 8 lanes, right? And so we made do with it, and we were grateful for what we had during that period of time. But now the facility is truly second to none. We have 2 long jump pits, we have high jump pit, we can borrow another high jump pit and have 2 high jump things going on at the same time. It's just, what we have today is pretty special, and they did it right when they did it. So I respect everything that you went through during that period of time, because when I first came in, I was in that same situation.
Well, Glenwood had the best limestone track in the county.
We called that kitty litter back then.
Cinder track. They ran the Premier League meet and the districts.
I totally believe that. Yeah, when it degraded a little bit by the time I got there, and so if we had to have a practice at 44th Street, we would call it, we're going to be on the kitty litter today. But it was, I mean, that limestone back then when it first was built was probably what it was supposed to be, and then it over time degraded a little bit.
Scott, I hate to do this to you, but you know
Yes.
that we are a football club,
Yes.
and you probably were anticipating this question, but you have built a track and field program that's second to none,
Thank you.
but their football program has been less than second to none. Is there a reason for the disconnect?
I think it's a disconnect with the sport itself, at least in playing local. There's just not the number of people going out for the sport that there used to be. And with a lack of numbers, that's why I'd like to get 200 kids out for the track team, because you're going to find talent. And so I don't think football has the popularity, at least in playing local, that it used to have. And I think that lack of numbers hurts the program today. And so building it back up is an important thing for the future, and that's, I think, going to be one of the challenges that they have. Yes, sir.
Track has to be very important to our country. I got drafted in the military, and I never realized how often you run. Every day, every day. And if you didn't run, you were in serious trouble.
That is true. And running is one of the first things, as soon as you learn how to walk, you want to go run, right? You want to, let's get there faster. And so we all end up doing it by choice or not by choice at some point in our lifetime. But running is a important skill, and it's a great lifetime activity for people as well. Yeah.
Recently, there's been a move towards Olympics with where they say let everybody use drugs. Let there be no limitation. What is your feeling about that?
I would be against that. What are those? The enhanced games. Yeah, those just started to take place, and I haven't seen much of that in the running world. I did see that in the swimming world, where these guys were just roided up and ripping some times in the water. But I haven't noticed that as much in the track and field world. Well, you go back to the 70s, and the East Germans were like renowned for it, right? And then the first person I really remember getting popped was the guy from Canada. Somebody help me with the name. Set a world record. Ben Johnson. Thank you. Ben Johnson, 1984, when he got popped, that really brought steroids to a forefront.
I've been put on the spot here to come up with a question. So the NIL just passed. The Ohio High School Athletic Association member schools voted to pass NIL, I believe, today. How do you see
that passed?
That passed overwhelmingly. It passed overwhelmingly. How do you see that affecting sports like track and field, maybe some of your country club sports like golf and tennis?
Well, I'm shocked that it passed, to be honest with you. The purity of a sport means a lot, right? And so if you can bring in a bunch of kids because you have a donor that can start writing checks, table here and start writing checks to have some athletes come into your school, does it mean as much as it would if you're doing it with the homebred? There's a whole lot of difference. So my personal feeling is I'm against that, because you're just gonna have people buying championships. And in high school, it's already a challenge. We've already seen the challenge at the collegiate level with the NIL, and to add that to the high school is just something that is gonna hurt things. And so what's gonna happen with those country club sports is you're gonna have athletes that go to other sports, for the limelight sports, and then they're not gonna participate in those other sports that we would call the country club sports or whatnot. But I think that's gonna hurt the non-limelight sports. Hi.
Scott, you've obviously got a very successful program. We appreciate you for it.
Thank you.
Who did you turn the program over to? And did you have input into that person, and do you plan to be a mentor to that person in the future?
Thank you. On the girls cross country, a young lady named Kinsley Anstein took over that program, and she did a phenomenal job this year. As I said earlier, I volunteered every day, so I was kind of there to answer some questions for her. And the team was a team state qualifier this year as well, and so she took that and just kept the ball going. And in track and field, it's going to be Brian Crossy, who I mentioned earlier in the talk. He was with me for over 2 decades. I think he started with us in 2001 or 2002, and the program will be in good hands, and I will be there to answer questions and help out. So thank you very much. All right. Well, it is an honor to be here in front of you and get to share these stories with you and answer some questions. And I thank you very, very much for this opportunity to be with you. Thank you.